My name's Guy KESTEVEN, and for the past 20 years I've been lucky enough to ride some of the best bikes in the world. And today it's a proper GuykesTV exclusive, because it's the first time I've been able to take footage straight from a global exclusive Ride Live bike launch. So if you want to know how the new Pivot Mach 5.5 rides from the trail sooner than anyone else, carry on watching. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be the only one doing a quick walk round, because I know there's some other websites been doing here, but they cleared off without riding the bike because it was raining, and that's certainly not going to happen because I'm here to ride, because, you know, riding bikes is what matters, not just walking around them. But you might want to know specific details. So, 160mm fork, 66.5 degree head angle, 430mm rear end, boost 148mm spacing, 140mm travel. Chris Kakalis, he's always worked very, very close with Shimano. His bike's one of the first to come through with Di2 compatibility as standard, and that's still here on this frame. And there's a very neat bolt-on front mech mount that you can get. And I actually thought when I first saw it there wasn't a side swing routing, but that's because it's so neatly done, just under here on the protector. So whatever kind of transmission you want to run, it's fully ready for it. Each port is identical, so you're not constantly playing a jigsaw puzzle trying to get your bike wondering which bit goes where. And even on an extra small frame size, you've still got room for a full-size bottle cage in there, and an ISCG mount. And the DW link, that's Dave Weagle's link, famous suspension designer, runs this really neat H brace up top with the big bearing at the back of the shock for minimum stiction, and then another little neat H brace down the bottom there. So very, very short linkages, keeping it very stiff. Geometry is very much from the latest generation of pivot bike, from the Pivot FIREBIRD and the Switchblade. So you've got a really generous top tube, 460mm on this large, up to 485 on the extra large. That's a full fat Maxxis 2.6 tyre in the back with plenty of space around it, even in these muddy conditions. Exclusive Reynolds new carbon wheels available as an upgrade. That's a 36mm internal width on that carbon rim. So the whole bike has been designed as a kind of holistic, homogenistic, high modulus wonderland of big beefy tubes, big old fork at the front, wide rims, big tyres, big capability, but at an impressively low weight. But this is quite clearly just talking about the bike, and what you'll be interested in and what I can provide is hopefully some pretty insightful first ride impressions. I've ridden literally thousands of bikes in the 20 years I've been doing this professionally, and I know for a fact that the first few minutes on a bike, and those first few corners, the first few drops, compressions and route spreads, that can tell you a hell of a lot about a machine. So yeah, let's get acquainted with the Mach 5.5. Let's get supersonic, in fact. So here we go. Exclusive first ride impression. I shouldn't be riding as daft on the first run on the first bike, but it's drawing me in, even though this is slick. God knows what you can see through the camera now. But I'm rattling on. Yes! Oh, yes! You can really use that long front end, let it go away, pull it back in. This has got the authority to keep it online. You have no idea how soapy it feels under these tyres, but I'm not fretting too much because I know already this bike's got me back. Now, it's a section of trail we use a lot in testing, and it's a great benchmark, and we're literally off to a flying start here, because this section can really kill a bike that can't carry speed. And it's a real shame the lads from Wide Open Mag and Single Track have gone home, cried off because of the weather, because it is loving it. It might be designed in Arizona, but it is properly loving here, and I'm sure they're loving the launch amongst all the radioactive debris of Moab in the States, here among the bluebells and wild boar of Forest of Dean. Whoa, Mach 5 going supersonic. Yes. And while, however hard I pedal, climbing shots always look dull and boring, they're a definite part of the ride package. And on the Pivot, they're about as easy and pleasurable and high traction as you can get. That DW link is really efficient, but supple enough to keep the traction, even when you've dropped it out the revs up a steep section like that. And while carbon rims are very much the must-have fashion accessory right now,
in a lot of cases, they don't actually do the ride any favours, because they're super harsh and just batter you and just numb your hands and take any sensation out. But these, the profile and the rim build up, how Reynolds pretty much do all their pre-preg and resin sorting out in-house, what they put together overseas, and you can, am I allowed to say you can feel that? I certainly still feel something's going right. And while 160mm front, 140mm rear might not be colour and cuffs, the balance is outstanding. Excellent. Pop, that 140mm back gets you up and over really quickly. But that 36 on the front is just ready for anything you're brave enough to go barreling into, even when it's proper dicey and slippery and foot out flary like this. I mean, I always feel guilty when I interview Chris, just get his ideas on various designs, because I've only got room for a sentence and he always gives me an essay, but that's just so obvious in the way this bike is so detailed in its design, whether it's the Di2 compatibility, the Fox Live readiness, whatever, the balance of the suspension and the handling, everything is so fine-tuned. Well, I haven't, you know, it speaks volumes for everything he does. It's such a communicative bike. Says it's a pivotal bike for his brand, but then he wanted from Pivot, but he's got this one bob on as far as I can tell so far. And while 140mm of travel might not sound like a lot, the amount of control coming out of those two short linkages is so impressive, and it's so balanced, so sensitive, and yet with plenty of mid-stroke support, so I can really tell what these tyres are doing and really work with them, even when the traction is absolutely at the limit, like it is today. This is not an easy ride as a first date introduction to any bike, but I'm glad it's this one. And apologies if the trail footage is looking a bit repetitive, because this is my third lap now, but each time I'm pushing it harder, and the Mach 5.5 is just pushing back, wanting even more. Whoa, yes, surfing that front tyre there, but bringing it in, and it'll expand in either direction as well as a bolt cage, and take a Float X2 piggyback shot to get the most from that 36. You don't have to run a 2.6 tyre. It'll take a 2.3 without ruining the geometry. Make it that bit lower, that bit lighter, quicker off the mark. But I have to say, the rig I'm running today, what a sweet spot. Oh, it's such an appetite for technical trails. I could do this all day. And it's light enough and responsive enough through the pedals that you can do this all day. Pop, burn, turn. Yes, what a great example of a fully future-proof trail bike. Yeah. Woo. Yes. Oh. And if this is a first date, so there's anything to go by, I think I'm in love.